So we will light now our opening prayer and our chalice lighting. It's called A Sturdy Flame. We light this chalice with hope. A sturdy flame we nurture in these difficult times. We light this chalice with the heart of compassion for a nation divided by politics and strife. We light this chalice knowing that it will take all of us to repair this world we live in. May we find rest, compassion, and the hope that we need to nurture ourselves and each other. May this sturdy light remind us of the people we can be and the difference we can make in the world together. Our hymn now is number 20 in the gray hymnal, Be Thou My Vision. And if you are able to rise and sing with us now. At this time in our service, we share our joys and concerns, being mindful that many people could have joys and concerns that they share, so that we try to share the space of that as well. So if you will come up, if you would like to, and share a joy and concern, and we'll light a candle for you, or you can light a candle yourself. Just introduce yourself so we know who you are. Thank you.
Is that?
Yes.
I'm lighting a candle in great thanks. Yesterday I taught a class up at Featherstone, an enameling class, which I have to turn the kiln on the night before. And when I got there in the morning, the kiln was off. It turns out the plug was faulty and it could have started a fire. So I want to say thanks to the universe for protecting my Featherstone, and we didn't have a disaster. And I just have to light a candle of thanks.
Thank you, Lucinda. Is anyone else? Rita?
Good morning, Rita Brown. Welcome all. I want to take this opportunity to say thanks to Reverend Vicky Hanjian, who's here with us today. Vicky does our pastoral care for our community. So what does it take before you decide you're going to call for pastoral care? Pastoral care is, I'm having trouble processing what's happening in this world right now, and I just need somebody to talk to. She's one of the most compassionate people I have ever known. And so you don't have to have your life in crisis. You just need somebody to talk to. If you know somebody in our church, a regular visitor who would like a call or a visit, Vicky is very open to that for us. So thank you. Thank you very much.
So I'm Catherine Colin, longtime member. I had something written out that I was going to say, and I decided, no, I wasn't going to say that. So I'll go back and just quickly say it.
Take your time.
I'm timed, though. I timed myself. I lost two family members in the first week of March. My brother, who was 93, and my cousin Carol, who was also 93. They are both from the Vineyard. They have very good lives, I should say. They're 93. But they loved the Vineyard. They loved this island. They were from there, and it was important to them. I have a little rhyme about the island that was given to my mother in the 1950s, mind you, from the Edgartown librarian. So I've been around a long time. So this is just a short poem, Islands. Islands always seem to me children of the land and sea, lulled by winds that know no rest, cradled on their mother's breast, children most supremely blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And now a reading, Lament based on Psalm 56. Of human wrangling, there is no end. Endless struggles engulf us. Where do we find hope? There is trust in words that have been spoken. Despite all the words that have been hurled, we find meaning, talking with each other. We weep until the pillow is soaked. The air swallows all our tears. Our solace is our words to each other. And now Reverend Vicky Hanjian will say the homily, When Trust is Betrayed.
Thank you, Sheila. It's a joy to be back with you again. I always look forward to these Sundays, so it's a real treat, and especially today when so many are wearing green. My grandparents emigrated from Ireland, so I have a real soft spot in my heart for the Irish. I want to begin today by reading a few verses from Psalm 74. We heard a modernized lament that Sheila read before based on Psalm 56. And Psalm 74 is also a psalm of lament. It's a plea for help in time of national humiliation. And it was a profoundly angry and deeply sorrowful cry to God, to the God of Israel, in the wake of the utter destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. Destruction of the temple represented the destruction of the center of ultimate value for Israel in ancient times. Metaphors are very sharp and all too contemporary. Listen to the grieving cry of the poet. O God, why do you cast us off forever? Why does your anger smoke against the sheep of your pasture? Remember your congregation which you acquired long ago when you redeemed the tribe of your heritage. Remember Zion, where you came to dwell. Direct your steps to the perpetual ruins. The enemy has destroyed everything in the sanctuary. Your foes have roared within your holy place. They set up their emblems there. At the upper entrance, they hacked the wooden trellises with axes, and then with hatchets and hammers, they smashed all its carved work. They set your sanctuary on fire. They desecrated the dwelling place of your name, bringing it to the ground. They said to themselves, we will utterly subdue them. They burned all the meeting places of God in the land. We do not see our emblems. There is no longer any prophet, and there is no one among us who knows how long. How long, O God, is the foe to scoff? Is the enemy to revile your name forever? Why do you hold back your hand? It was right about Tuesday morning when I sat down to write that I was asking myself the question, why did I ever land on thinking that I could write a sermon on the betrayal of trust? When I saw the theme in the Soul Matters materials, I thought that it was rife with possibilities that I could easily shape into a sermon. And then the blank computer screen was staring me in the face. The writers among you will know how unnerving a blank page can be. So I went to my fail-safe. First, a definition of sorts. What is implied in the phrase of a betrayal of trust? A betrayal of trust is when someone breaks the confidence that another person has placed in them. A betrayal of trust refers to a breach of confidence or reliance that has been placed in someone. It can involve breaking promises, sharing confidential information without permission, or acting dishonestly in a way that undermines the faith or reliance you have placed in another. This can occur in personal relationships, professional settings, any situation where there is an expectation of trust. Betrayal can deeply impact the foundation of the relationship, leading to feelings of betrayal, anger, and emotional upheaval. It's a breach of the implicit or explicit agreements and expectations that define the relationship and can be a significant challenge to overcome. So, we're off and running. To put it bluntly, we are living through an incredibly chaotic time when many of the systems we have come to trust and depend upon for ordering the life of society are either threatened or being dismantled. A huge betrayal of trust. And betrayal of this kind deeply impacts us and begs the question, how might we move through this betrayal in a healthful way and avoid becoming what we hate? Well, as the graceful flowing of the universe would have it, a book that I ordered several months ago, pre-publication, arrived in the mail this week. I had totally forgotten that I had ordered it. So when I opened it, I was surprised by its serendipitous arrival. The title is The Tears of Things. The Tears of Things, and it's by Franciscan friar Richard Rohr. The blurb on the front flap of the dust cover asks, how do we live compassionately in a time of violence and despair? What can we do with the anger we feel in such an unjust world? And I would add my own question, how do we tap into a deeply compassionate response when anger seems far more justified? The title of the book, The Tears of Things, comes from a line in Virgil's Aeneid, where the hero, Aeneas, gazes at a mural that depicts a battle of the Trojan War and depicts the deaths of his friends and his countrymen. Aeneas is so moved with sorrow at the tragedy that he speaks of the tears of things. And it gets translated, there are tears at the heart of things, at the heart of our human experience. The assertion of the book is that only tears can move both Aeneas and us beyond our deserved paralyzing anger at evil, death, injustice. Only our tears can move us beyond that without losing the deep legitimacy of that anger. Well, the voices of the ancient prophets did the same thing. They could see where the future of Israel was headed, and their voices were not welcome in high places. They spoke truth to power as they drew attention to the wealthy who gained their wealth at the expense of the poor, as they angrily defended the widow and the orphan against the wealthy who would, quote, sell the needy for a pair of shoes. The prophets warned against unwise alliances that would eventually lead to the downfall of Israel. The prophets could see how things were going. They could see that if the neglect of the people continued and Israel would indeed become vulnerable to the invasion of the Babylonians and exile and the destruction of the temple happened. So the prophets gave voice to anger, and rightly so. They drew attention to the great disorder in society. And the psalmist gives voice to the people's rage and their anguish and their pain at the destruction of all that held them together as a people. A destruction that sent them into exile, physical, spiritual, and emotional exile. But as Richard Rohr points out, underneath the beautiful and righteous anger that moved the prophets and the psalmists to speak out and critique their historical situation was a profoundly deep sorrow, an anguished grief that was inconsolable as they felt and experienced the reality in which they lived. Richard Rohr writes that felt reality is invariably wept reality, and wept reality is soon compassion and kindness. Decisive and harsh judgments slip away in the tracks of tears. The voices of the prophets and the psalmists often flow from what sounds like unmitigated rage against the systems of the times, flow to giving voice to the soul-searing sorrow and sadness that fuel the anger. And once that profound sorrow and grieving, and the grieving that came with it, is reached, the wells of compassion could open up. And eventually, the words of hope and restoration would come. And those words eventually followed by equally deep expressions of gratitude and well-being. So we human beings don't readily give ourselves over to lament. We do certainly complain a lot. We know how to do that, but a lament is something different. Lament gets to the grief at the core of the matter. And if we don't ever permit ourselves to reach into the depths of the sorrow and the loss that we experience as we move through this grossest betrayal of trust in which we find ourselves, we are in danger of merely swimming in anger and frustration without ever reaching the wells of compassion that are required in order to set things right again. Research has revealed over the years that while anger is the necessary energy for bringing about change, we can't sustain righteous anger over an indefinite period of time. It wears us out and it makes us sick. The prophetic movement from anger through sorrow to compassion seems to be the way in which to maintain a level of energy as we move through the process of coming to terms with the great betrayal of trust that we live with these days. In no way do we give up the anger that moves us, but we may allow it to be tempered by acknowledging, lamenting, sorrowing, weeping, even viscerally groaning over the loss of such a fundamental trust. We may be well on the way to understanding that the betrayal is universal and it transcends all political barriers. We are all living with the betrayal regardless of the color of the caps we wear. Each day, the headlines reveal how gross the betrayal is. When we reach the level of understanding of how deep that betrayal goes, when we can mourn that loss together across political barriers, we may well be in the position of extending a far deeper compassion to one another and to the folks with whom we disagree. And when compassion rules, gratitude and hope become a reality again. Out of compassion, creative, healing action happens. I was struck by a very brief article in the MV Times this week. I'm sure you've seen it. A group of high school students who formed the GSA, the Gender and Sexuality Alliance at the high school, successfully organized and petitioned for the creation of a more accessible, gender-neutral bathroom for students who've been uncomfortable with the existing situation. It brought tears to my eyes. It seems like such a small thing, given the gross betrayals at the national level. But to me, it seemed like an ultimate act of compassionate resistance in the face of overwhelming bias and discrimination. These kids have got it. There are far more complex things for us adults and as members of a community of faith. Righteous anger will get us on the move, but anger will not sustain us for the long haul. For that, some honest grieving and sorrowing must be encountered for all that we have lost and are indeed still in danger of losing. Sooner or later, the profound losses of the freedoms we have enjoyed, of the safety nets that have kept us fairly stable, the loss of dignity, the loss of a commonly accepted sense of morality, the loss of respect for creation, sooner or later, all those losses and more need to be mourned. We need to make ourselves vulnerable to feeling and weeping the tears at the heart of things, to allow ourselves to grieve. So great a betrayal of trust is a profound and terrible loss. Emily Towns has written, communal lament as a corporate experience of calling for healing makes suffering bearable and manageable in the community. When we grieve, when we lament, when we acknowledge and live the experience, rather than trying to hold it away from us out of some misguided notion of being strong, we gain strength. We hurt. Something is fractured, if not broken. A foul spirit lives in and among us. We are living in structures of evil and wickedness that make us ill. Close quote. Thich Nhat Hanh, the beloved Zen master, was asked, what must we do to save our world? And he answered, what we most need to do is to hear within us the sound of the world crying. According to 15th century mystic Meister Eckhart, serendipitously again, I picked up this reading this morning. Meister Eckhart, this is back in the 1400s now, we're talking, wrote this: compassion is justice. When we reach the depths of compassion, we become justice. Lamenting, grieving, mourning, weeping, not your New England way. And yet that is what we are challenged to do if we are to move through the anger that comes with the betrayal of trust toward a compassion that we will need if we are indeed to become justice, if we are to heal and to find the creative energy to set the world right again. May it be so. Amen. The lament psalms in the scriptures often start out with the angry cry. They recognize the disorder in life. When that grief is expressed, those lament psalms may go on verse after verse after verse with this awful emotional feeling. And by the end, the psalmist is giving thanks, is saying, yet, oh God, I live with gratitude for your grace and mercy. I'm not there yet, I have to tell you. However, our closing song is "My Life Flows On" in endless song. And that first line is, above earth's lamentations, indeed my song still rises. So let's sing it together. It's number 108, "My Life Flows On" in endless song.
Boy, oh boy, you know? You know, if I practice more, I might get this right.
Stay here.
Stay here.
We'll introduce
Okay.
We do have fun, you know?
Me too, that's what it's all about.
That's what it's about, yes, enjoying each other. Hear these words of benediction. They're called Wild Waters by Chad Snyder. These waters, they never stay calm, not for long, because they are teeming with the stuff of life. The energy of our being washes over and around us. Let us brace each other when we need to stand against those currents. And let us hold hands when what we need is to relax into the waves and ride them together. And may the peace that passes understanding be ours in the midst of the chaos. Amen.
So in the spirit of singing and also recognition of St. Patrick's Day tomorrow, we have a tree